Okay, hello everybody. This is Tom again with Are You on the Spectrum? I'm continuing. This is part three of the article I've been reading of, get the name of it here, Diagnosing Autism Spectrum Disorders in Older Adults. This part that I'm going to cover now, um, they're all important parts. They really are. And these are as I've done these 3 weeks of 3 weeks, 2 weeks of soul searching. This one article probably contains. It's written for the clinicians of to their perspective of finding somebody that's on the spectrum, but I think it fits really well with the person who's looking for those answers. Basically, we're self-diagnosing, and basically, I'm screening myself to see whether or not I'm on. I even have a possibility. That's the stage I'm still at. Um, and I got to go into this again, what I think the bottom line is going to be with people my age. And if you don't have somebody that can back up what it is, or if you don't have some way of backing up other than a clinical assessment of your current skills, possibly some history, they'll get into this here, but you know, eventually it's probably going to boil down to you having to make your own decision and continue to do research. And hopefully you're not this is what I'm hoping is that that there's not some sort of service or something that I can learn to lessen uh, the fatigue, the struggle with dealing with this. Um, boy, um, yeah. when when should I suspect this is no out of the article? I'm sorry. When should I suspect a possible diagnosis of ASD? I covered this in somewhat of detail in the last part, um, and there's all these different screenings that are ways to eliminate the absolutely you don't have autism from the you might. Um, but the bottom line is some of these screenings are imperfect also. Matter of fact, the first one here, um, uh, download the article. I will include the link to it. Let's see it. This was in box one, where it says consider the possibilities of ASD when one or more of both A and B are present. And A goes into persistent difficulties in social interaction, persistent difficulties in social communication, rigid and repetitive behaviors, resistant to change or restricted interests, and B with history of problems obtaining, sustaining employment or education, difficulties initiating or sustaining social relationships, and previous current contact with mental health and learning disability services, history of neurodevelopmental conditions, including learning disabilities, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, or mental disorders. So that would be a first indication. Again, I'll download the article and look through those and do some soul searching as you look through those. And unfortunately, you got at least this is the way I am, and it's hard to maintain this. But I'm afraid it will be easy. It would be very easy, and I wish it would be very comfortable if I could just at this point say, and I've been awful close to this point of saying, yep, okay, at this point, I realize this is something that's important to me. This is helping me. Um, I don't need that diagnosis. This is good enough for me. Um, and I, and that's a very tempting decision to make. It really is. Um, but again, I'll know and I will reach that point one way or the other. Another tool that was developed is the Autism Spectrum Quotient. They'll call it the AQ10, which is a 10-question quotient, and a AQ50. I have another article on that basically said these were um, unreliable tests because of the number of people that had autism that still registered as not having it. I think all of these are tools. especially when you get into the shades of gray that we're going to when we're older adults, because of all the compensations we've done, the lack of ability to have people and records and that will back up what we're saying we are feeling or experiencing. They say it well here, so let me go on. Making a diagnosis later in life. A clinical diagnosis of ASD is usually based on psychiatric examination, which includes a detailed developmental history, normally provided by the patient's parents. Okay, my parents have passed away. In older adults, obtaining such a developmental history may be impossible, bing, either owing to the lack of informants and or because of significant recall bias. That's what I'm afraid of. And be honest, there's some areas I have to say, yep, I'm fuzzy on that. But it's not a lot of them. Because I don't know if this is true, and if people leave comments on this, if this is sort of common, but man, there were so many experiences that we've had that pushed us into conforming or compensating, and it can be the some I mean, it's just you go back in time and you start thinking of because you remember embarrassing moments, you remember times where you felt awkward, and there are so many of them that you can kind of go back and go, I remember this. Oh yeah, oh I remember this. And then when you start seeing that pattern, then you can, if it was one incident, and there are things like that where I'm going, you kind of remember, and those are the ones that are too fuzzy. I can't base my decision on that. Now I may eventually get through enough stuff that I go back to that one and go, yeah, that probably did happen, but I'm not there yet. So the search continues. So does the article here. In older adults, obtaining such developmental history may be impossible, either owing to the lack of informants or because of significant recall bias. It says, for example, owing to a long timeline or potential cognitive impairments in the informant. So yeah, if your memory starts going, I mean, how reliable are your memories? As many individuals with ASD have impaired insight into their disabilities. That's really important to think about. Obtaining collateral histories from knowledgeable informants, i.e. close relatives, caregivers, can enhance the accuracy of the diagnostic process. This is why you should read it, not listen to me. For younger adults, NICE, N-I-C-E, which is UK's healthcare system, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, recommends that a formal ASD assessment be undertaken by multiple professional, trained, and competent specialists who may support their work by using formal assessment tools such as the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule. In practice, however, older adult services generally do not have access to such specialist teams owing to age barriers, and none of the formal assessment tools have been validated for this age group. So it's sort of like, if you get it, I mean, I'm trying to get a neuropsych eval. If I get my neuropsych eval, and if I have people that are trained to do this for older adults, then I mean, and this was, what did I say, 2014, so maybe things have been changed. I would hope so. But so you get your foot in the door, you start getting tested, but the tests, the tools they're using might not be they're not validated for your age. Sort of like back to square one. I mean, you might go through. I'll go through all this. This could take, I hope not, but this could take a year or two, maybe more. And I will keep doing my research. One of the things, though, that I know is so it so sways my opinion, is talking with other people that are going through this. Now, granted, everything I've said so far, maybe you're saying, well, and my friend has Asperger's, says, you're on the spectrum. I know it. I've seen hundreds of people. I've talked to hundreds of people. You're on. And I'm like, oh, but it just, and she understands this part, this need to really feel comfortable with that answer. But the more I talk with people, the more articles I read, the more there's some what do I call them? Forums that are for people with autism or Asperger's, and I go in there and I talk with those people, and I leave comments or I leave questions and the answers, and you just start reading through it, and it's like, I don't think people can't relate to this if they haven't experienced it. And you can tell if a person is, well, I won't say tell if they're faking it, but the examples they may give. I mean, this is, it's just, when you can talk with a person for literally hours, and you sit there going, yeah, me too, yeah, me too, yeah, and pretty soon, and you start going, this is not coincidence. There's truth here. There's undeniable truth here. So anyway, the final sentence here. For the non-specialists, the operational diagnostic characteristics of the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, may be more clinician friendly. So just going by that definition that they have in there. In the new DSM-5, the former diagnoses of autism, Asperger's syndrome, and pervasive developmental disorders not otherwise specified, which is PDD/NOS, if you look it up, or you can look up the full name. They have all been merged into a single unifying diagnosis of ASD. So, what do you say? What do you do? Again, if this had been something I just read through and was like the first time I heard about autism or Asperger's, and said, excuse me, yeah, well, okay, yeah, it's interesting. Okay, I got something else to do, But this was a reaction, both physically, mentally. It was just like it was like, again, somebody flipped a switch, and all of a sudden my mind and my body went into full overdrive, somehow processing this possibility. And I'm still in the process of doing it. I have changed. My perspective of myself has changed. My perspective of how I deal with people. And actually, it's improved, because it's something about being able to say, okay, this uncomfortableness isn't because there's something wrong with you. This uncomfortableness is because there's something different about you. And that sort of gives me the power to say, okay, then now I have a choice. Where when there was something that was wrong with you, you were a victim. Oh, okay, well, I will just keep learning compensation skills and won't question it. Now I can question it. Now I have a responsibility to decide for myself. And this is the other thing too. I had a very low self-esteem. In some ways, I still do. But that's changing. I'm starting to feel a confidence just with that little bit of information that says, you're not broken. you're not in the wrong place. You know, you're here on Earth, and yes, this is where you're supposed to be around these people. It's uncomfortable, but this is why it's uncomfortable, and that all has made an incredible difference in the way that I feel like I can socialize and want to socialize. Um, I am going to make a link to a video by one of the people that I have been in contact with. Her name is Carol Bird. She has a YouTube channel called Mindful Divergence, and she did a video um, that that I want to link, um, and it sort of went into why it's your choice. I'm trying to think of what the title was. I think it had something to do with, you know, you can't basically, you have a responsibility still to society. You can't say, okay, well, just because because this is the way I'm built, that I don't really have an interest in people's small talk and stuff. Um, it went deeper than that and saying basically you know, since we have a problem of filtering, which we're very direct, doesn't mean that you have a right to hurt people. This was basically the gist of it. But she had so many good points in there. I learned a lot. I learned things that took me years to find on my own. And see how you feel about it. I'm going to link that in this video. So anyway, here I am, 16 minutes 40 seconds in, and this article has helped me a lot. I hope just going over some of these things and sort of sharing my thoughts about it, but I'll of course link this to this video as well. Read it, read all of it. I may do some more comments on some more. That this isn't all of the article yet, but it is the in a lot of ways the meat of it to me is, you know, why were we possibly misdiagnosed? What is it going to take to become diagnosed and confirm this? And is that even possible at our age? Those are all really, really good questions. And there aren't really any answers here. And like I say, I'm hoping that if I do get a chance to do the neuropsych, I'm going to share that with everyone too. So anyway, onward, onto this journey we go to try to find these answers. And if you're like me, I feel for you. I really do. And reach out to people in this community. They'll reach back. They understand. And I'm lucky enough to have a very important person now that's helping me, that is giving me a lot of good insights and good advice, and find those people. We need them, and they need us. And hopefully, as we transcend ourselves into the realization that yes, we are part of that community, we can also help other people. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So anyway, we'll talk with you later. Maybe another version of this coming out here soon. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.